Hello, Jorge. How are you?
Amigos, it's a pleasure to see my favorite history teacher, Joakim Brodén from Sabaton. How are you?
So far, so good. I'm looking forward to leaving. I mean, we've had a shitty spring here in Scandinavia, but now it's starting to warm up, but it's getting better because we're going to Latin America.
Great. Well, Joakim, you just released this new song, Templars, which leaves aside the world wars, and now you focuses on the era of the Crusades. Will your new album will be focused on that?
Uh, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but yeah, let's just say the next album will not be about World War One or two. It's gonna be we want to wait with the announcement, but it's a different theme, but it's not only gonna cover. I can reveal it's not only gonna cover sort of the Crusader era. There will be more there, but there is a concept for sure and a theme for the album.
That great. You just sang with Better Nice Music, your new label. So you are working now in this new album.
Yep. I mean, the album was done before we signed, if I remember correctly. We have had this in the bag for quite some time, but as with everything else, things take time, timing, sorting everything out. But yeah, we've been with Nuclear Blast for a long time, and we're still really good friends. So there's no animosity there or bad blood. We just thought it was time for the next step.
Great. Well, Joaquim, the world has hundreds of thousands of interesting stories spanning tens of thousands of years of history. For you, for Sabaton, how do you choose which one you'd like to tell through your music list?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's a weird answer though. Sometimes it's not really us deciding. Um, in many cases, we start with the theme or the concept of an album first, which then limits us, or sets the scene. Sort of, this is what we're working with, because we need to create those limitations for the creative process. For us, it helps us actually. And then let's say for Carolus Rex, we decided 100 years of the Swedish Empire. Let's tell that story. But then at that point, we didn't know exactly which stories. And in some ways, some of those are the ones we decided ourselves and we researched a lot. Some of those stories we decided we were going to do, we didn't have the right music that would fit it, or we couldn't tell the story the way we wanted. And sometimes it's actually fans writing us over the years. I mean, on certain albums, we've had emails from fans like 3 years earlier, and it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Maybe we'll do something on that one day. So our fans are a huge inspiration helping us out because every nation has their own sort of history, and it's uncommon for, let's say, Scandinavians to know too much about Latin American history, and vice versa, I would guess. I mean, obviously, we are aware of the Conquista, and you're aware of the Vikings, but that's sort of where
Yeah.
it ends. So sometimes it's also the song that decides, because we have a piece of music and we knew what the theme was, but we didn't know which exact battle, and then the song decides the lyrics and the story.
For you personally, do you have a favorite historical period, one that you are so very passionate about?
Yeah, but it goes sort of in waves. I'm a happy amateur. I'm not an expert historian by any means. I'm just a very passionate amateur, I should say. uh, Lately, it's been for me bit older. Let's talk about the rise of civilizations, not a specific era, but the rise of civilizations, and what came or what was there maybe before, let's say, a Christianity or Islam or any of the major religions, because in many cases there could be colonialism, or the entrance of a major monotheistic religion could change the culture, religion, and everything. And yeah, that thing at the moment for me, everything from the rise of let's say, the Sumerians. Uh, it could be the anything. Also in Latin America, pre-Spanish or Portuguese civilizations. All of that. Before this, there was a Cold War era, and the secret games behind the scenes, sort of. So it's different every time.
Sure. Well, Sabaton, um, your songs are always about stories that happened decades ago, a long time ago. Have you ever considered using kind of more recent historical events like, the Iraq War, Ukraine War, Palestine, something like that?
Yeah, we were kind of close with a couple of songs where we were closer to events when they happened, but we've also realized that, I mean, we've been doing this for some time now, and we have realized that the news and the history books, and the history books comes out a few years later, they usually tell a bit of a different story. And we've also had the luxury or the horror to travel while something is unfolding. So let's say there's a conflict happening somewhere in the world, or an election. It doesn't have to be a military conflict. And depending on where you are in the world, you're going to get a very, very different story, how it's told. So for us, we've sort of decided now in later years that, you know what, we shouldn't get involved because we are not the experts. We are passionate historians, but we are interested in history. We cannot decode the media bombardment madness and without while things are happening. We sort of have to wait for proper historians who are impartial in the conflict to see what they have to say, or at least if it's not historians, experts on the subject, people who had access to the real intelligence of what happened and not what was going on in the news. Now, I'm not saying that all news are fake news and lies, not at all. But I'm saying all news outlets are really hot on because they survive on coming up with a headline. And if they can get away with providing a headline that might get you to watch or listen, they will.
And also, maybe there is a risk that some people could say Sabaton is getting political or something like that, right?
Yeah, there is that risk. And let's just say we are controversial enough without getting involved in politics and religion. So we are staying out of that.
Well, Joakim, Sabaton is a band that grown a lot. The last time I saw you live was in Hellfest in France a few years ago, and your production is pretty impressive. It's the top fireworks, tanks. How difficult is to reproduce all that outside Europe, due to cost?
It is quite difficult. On this upcoming Latin American tour, we are going to be able to do it, not in the same scale, but we are going to have production on the festival dates. But it's actually a boring answer, but it's the honest truth. We are very different in size depending on where we are in the world. There are some places where we play a headline show and there's 25,000. There are some places where there's going to be 2,500 people. And at very different ticket prices as well, I should say. That sort of dictates of quite a bit on what kind of show we can put on. Because technically, if you ask me, I would like to do full show only. But we can't get our full show into the small venues. And no, even if we were prepared to lose a bit of money every now and then, which we actually do. There are several times we are on tour, we like, you know what? Even if this place is sold out, we are gonna lose money if we play the whole show. It doesn't matter. Let's do the whole show because we're here, we have the stuff. So we do those things from time to time when we can. But let's be honest, there's nobody in Latin America who's gonna put us in a huge venue and lose money so we can play the big boom instead of the small boom.
Well, talking about Latin America, you will be in Latin America in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Why took you so long to came back here in Mexico?
Dude, timing, and pandemics and shit and everything. Because one thing we wanted, we had plans, but they weren't announced when the pandemic hit. Yeah, we were in Russia at the time when the pandemic came, and we had to stop that. So our plan was to finish that, and then, yeah, obviously not happening at this moment. And we wanted to finish in Latin America because we toured a lot we had the chance to go to the US already. We'd done a lot of touring in Europe. We weren't really done, but we had been there at least. So our main priorities were sort of, let's say, Australia, Japan, Latin America, the places where we didn't go. And then, yeah, when the pandemic started opening up, things started shifting with economics in different countries. People said you can't tour right now because some places there were too many people leaving the business. Timing also, like we can't tour right now because we're making a new album. So I mean, technically, this tour we're doing now, we should have done this if it was possible. We should have done it like a year or two ago. But timing wise, we couldn't fit it. But we wanted to at least do as much as we could in Latin America before we go on the next cycle, because on the next cycle we got a new album and then we want to do Latin America again for real.
Great. Well, you will be returning in Mexico, as I said before. First, just a single date in Guadalajara in 3 weeks. But you have to do a more extensive tour in the future, just in Mexico.
Yeah, we want to. I mean, that's maybe we were too ambitious. That's probably why it's been taking us too long. But we don't want to be the band that goes only to one city or only to the capital. Guadalajara is obviously not the capital, but where the big festival is could be. Um, I mean, we played in Mexico a couple of times, but I would like to see more of Mexico. I prefer to play like, let's say, 4 shows in Mexico. Maybe that's possible. Maybe we're popular enough that we could do it. And if that's possible, then that's what we want to do. But on the other hand, we don't know the market, and it's also down to the promoters where they say, oh, I can't take that economic risk. I'm only going to give you 2 dates, and I need a Friday and a Saturday. So, nos vemos en Guadalajara. Guadalajara. Nos vemos en Guadalajara.